Hey. Dear Nova ones, welcome back to my channel. This is the Metatron speaking, and today we're looking at the very famous film The Irishman, specifically the one scene where the character interpreted by Robert De Niro, so Frank the Irishman, and the character interpreted by Joe Pesci, so Russell Bufalino, speak Italian. Is their accent correct? Their pronunciation? What about the words and grammar? Does the Italian sound natural? So, first question, do people actually do this? Like, take the bread and dip it in wine and then eat it? Well, bread and wine are omnipresent on Italian tables to this day. But if you're in Italy and you're having dinner, you won't see people dipping the bread in the wine. Generally speaking, what people do in our day and age, you just take a glass of wine, have a little sip, and then eat a bit of bread. With that being said, the scene is still quite authentic. Why? It's more of a old-style tradition from a time when people didn't have much. And it's absolutely plausible that people did it in America in the 50s, meaning people that were moving from Italy to the States. But between you and me, it's actually pretty good, so when you come to my place for dinner, we'll totally do it. There are a lot of videos literally broadcasting this specific scene on YouTube, and generally speaking, when you go check their comment section, you can have an idea based on what people say. But not in this case, because you've got people that say they completely messed up, people that say that they are perfect, people that say Joe Pesci did a great job but not Robert De Niro, and the opposite, people that say that Robert De Niro did a great job and had an excellent accent but not really so when it comes to Joe Pesci. Well, I happen to be Italian, specifically Sicilian. I was born and bred in Palermo, Sicily, and I speak both Italian and Sicilian. I'm native in both. So let's check out the scene together.
Questo pane è molto buono.
Buono, eh?
Yeah.
Dove una legge come te ha insegnato a parlare l'italiano?
In Italia la guerra.
Dove?
Salerno, Anzio, Sicilia, vicino Catania.
Catania? Lo sono di Catania.
Sì.
Sì.
Pensavo che tu hai un accento come Catania.
Quanto tempo ha stato alla guerra?
4 anni. 411 in Cambato, 122 a Ranzio.
Minchia.
Yeah.
Minchia.
Yeah.
E rischiando di morire?
Sempre scaldato.
Okay. First and foremost, let me say that both these actors were on their A game when it comes to their interpretation in the entirety of the film. They really did an excellent job. Let's begin with Joe Pesci, and I'd like to mention the things that he did really well.
Minchia.
Spot on.
Minchia.
Minchia. Okay, so he's using a word that Sicilians use a lot. Well, nowadays and age, it's a word that everyone really uses all over Italy, but originally, it's a word in Sicilian dialect. It means this, but it's kind of used like the F word in English. So in this case, he's expressing surprise, and that's exactly what a Sicilian would do. And when it comes to his pronunciation, it's absolutely perfect. Like, literally, his pronunciation has some problems during this scene, but with this word, he friggin' nailed it. He said it exactly like a Sicilian would. He has a proper Sicilian accent when it comes to the way he pronounces it. Minchia. Stellar, 10 out of 10.
Lo sono di Catania.
Also, when he says io sono di Catania, he has a foreign accent when he says it, but not too thick, and the grammar is correct. Io sono di Catania. It's one way to say it. You could also say io sono catanese, but io sono di Catania is fine.
Dove una legge come te ha insegnato a parlare l'italiano?
Okay, so this structure here is grammatically incorrect. First he says, dove un arese come te, irese, arese, we say irlandese. That one is actually wrong. You shouldn't say that like that. It's incorrect.
Dove una legge come te ha insegnato a parlare l'italiano?
But ha insegnato a parlare l'italiano. So now I've seen people in the comments complaining about his grammar in general, although I have to say, in this case, he should use imparare, which means to learn, rather than insegnare. However, and that's why people in the comments that are not from Sicily might not know this, Sicilians, I should say uneducated Sicilians, do this. Will switch the verb to teach into the verb to learn. So insegnare is to teach, imparare is to learn. Now in English it's fine to say teach myself, where did you teach yourself? But in Italian you can't do that. You have to say where did you learn? But as I say, in uneducated Italian, particularly in Sicilian, even in dialect, you can say "Uno t'insegnassi." Uno t'insegnassi a parlare lo siciliano, which means how did you teach yourself? So closer to English. In this case, Therefore, the fact that some people complain, oh, his grammar is wrong, I'm like, yeah, but it's fine actually, because this guy is a Sicilian in the 50s, I guess, and if he wasn't particularly educated, yes, he would use the verb insegnare. Now, the way he connects it, l'italiano, it's weird. That one, it wouldn't be a mistake a native would make. So I can't say that the entire sentence is fine, but the usage of this verb, probably unintentionally, is actually pretty good.
Pensavo che tu hai un accento come Catania.
Here, Robert De Niro, and then we'll get to Robert De Niro and how he speaks and everything, and I actually think that Robert De Niro's character is more believable and more credible in the way he speaks than Joe Pesci's character Russell Bufalino. I'll tell you why in a minute. But here Frank tells Russ, oh yeah, I thought you had a Catania accent. He doesn't. Like, completely. Only when he says minchia, it sounds very Sicilian, but he does not have the typical intonation that someone from Catania would have. I actually believe they could teach him to do it and just memorize the intonation. It's not a big deal for people who don't speak Italian nor Sicilian, but as an Italian it kind of breaks my suspension of disbelief.
Quanto tempo ha stato alla guerra?
Quanto tempo ha stato alla guerra? That's how he says it. First, there is a pronunciation mistake. Double R is pronounced as a double R all the time. Guerra. There are some Italians that say guerra, but they are in Rome. It's kind of a characteristic of a Roman accent that he shouldn't have. As a Sicilian, he should pronounce his double R's strongly. Guerra. Quanto tempo ha stato alla guerra is a literal translation from English. It should be quanto tempo sei stato in guerra. That's how any Italian would say it. Although then again, I have to say that I have heard very uneducated people, again, from little small towns, sometimes in Sicily, swapping the verb to be as the auxiliary verb in this sentence to the verb to have. So the fact that he says ha stato, un hai stato, it's how you do it in Sicilian dialect. Does that mean that this sentence is in Sicilian? No, it's in an Italian that is kind of fucked up the grammar because of Sicilian, so it's actually quite believable. But with a little extra coaching, it could have sounded a lot more authentic. Now the big question about Russ Bufalino. Was he supposed to speak Italian like a native? Or was he just brought up in America? Maybe just his family was from Sicily. Because if the latter is the case, then it's not a big deal that he doesn't speak like a native. The real person, Russ Bufalino, was actually born in Sicily near Catania in 1903, but immediately emigrated to the United States. But because of an accident that his father had, he had to go back to Sicily almost immediately, and will spend 11 years in Sicily as a child before moving again to the States. So, considering the fact that by the time you're 11, yes, you are absolutely a native, maybe his vocabulary wouldn't have been very large, but yes, he should sound like a native and he should have a full-on Catania accent. Now let's have a look at Robert De Niro's performance. So, his Italian is an actual mess when it comes to grammar. However, that is not a problem. In fact, that makes it more authentic. What I mean by that is that even at the beginning of the scene, without even having to go do research on the actual character Frank the Irishman, we find out that he's not a native. He is someone who learned Italian during the war because he was stationed in Italy, Anzio, Salerno, Sicilia, as he says. So we shouldn't expect him to speak perfect Italian, which is really what confused me when it comes to the comment section. Why would he speak perfect Italian? In fact, here is one of the mistakes he makes.
Pensavo che tu hai un accento come Catania.
Pensavo che tu hai un accento come Catania. That is exactly how English people and Americans that learn Italian but are not very fluent speak, using English grammar but substituting Italian words. When I was 18 in Sicily, I remember I had a lot of friends from America, from Britain, and I remember that that's something they do. I thought you had an accent like Catania, but that's not how we say it. We don't put like. We would say, sì, hai un accento catanese, or hai un accento di Catania. No one would say, hai un accento come Catania, come meaning like, because that would just be speaking English but substituting Italian words. I can understand you, but it sounds very foreign. But it is so authentic that I think it's perfect because it fits his character. Remember, he is not native. And it's not like his character learned Italian at university, learned Italian during the war. Which is also why I'm puzzled by people who say, oh, his Italian pronunciation is perfect. No, it's not. He says Salerno, which sounds very American. We say Salerno. He says Anzio, we say Anzio. So no, he doesn't sound perfect, but he shouldn't sound perfect. That's why I actually think that the fact that he doesn't sound perfect and he sounds like a foreigner is excellent.
811 Incambato.
Incambato doesn't exist. Even for me, I had to go back a few times and I was like, what is he saying? And then I read the subtitles. It says 411 days in combat, and I'm like, oh, so they're trying to say in combat, and they translated it as in combato or combato. We say in combattimento. It's kind of difficult to understand, but I guess Russ in this scenario understands it from the context.
122 Arancio, 45th Infantry.
Even the fact that now he switches to English makes it even more authentic, because someone who speaks some Italian but isn't exceptionally fluent, you know, he's still using a little Italian because he knows the guy likes it, you know, he wants this boss to like him and make sense, but then he will switch to English when he doesn't feel as comfortable or maybe doesn't know the words. So again, nice touch.
E rischiando di morire.
In this one I thought he said rischiando di morire, but then I think he said tiscanti di morire. Maybe. Scantarisi is a Sicilian dialect word to say to be afraid of, so if that's the one they were going with, it's pretty cool that they used it.
Sempre scandato.
Sempre scantato, yeah, absolutely. He's switching to dialect now. Sempre scantato. Scantato is a way to say I was afraid in Sicilian, and it would again make sense that when he was stationed in Sicily, standard Italian wasn't as common perhaps as it is now with the younger generation, that he would learn a word that is actually dialect, and perhaps without even knowing that what he was using was actually dialect. So I thought that this was a very nice touch. And it also confirms what I thought about Bufalino before, then yes, probably that's what he was asking. I wouldn't exactly ask it like that, but you know, I understand messing up the grammar of a dialect is even harder for the people writing this. And again, he switches to English, which I think is excellent and very believable. Okay, so overall, the scene is very good. They did a great job. If I was the, I don't know, accent coach or the Italian coach in this scene, what I would have done, I would have left Robert De Niro's parts exactly as they are. Maybe I wouldn't have used this in combato because, again, a native might not understand it, but it's not a big deal. That's the only thing. Maybe I would have changed it to in combattimento, have him fuck up a little bit the pronunciation in combattimento, something like this, but I think it would have been better. But regardless of that, I wouldn't change a thing. When it comes to Joe Pesci, I would have trained him a little bit to kind of mimic, at least a bit more, the actual Catania accent that I'll show you in a second. I would have removed the mistakes that wouldn't be native-like, but I would have kept the two verbs that he uses that are typical Sicilian, maybe even emphasizing it a bit, like dove ti insegnassi a parlare italiano. That would have been really cool. So I think the scene could have been better, but still a great job. Alright, but that concludes our analysis of this scene. If you enjoyed it, just let me know. Let me know if there are other movies, films that have sections in Italian, Sicilian, I want to say, you know, Japanese, Chinese as well, but I'd rather do more Sicilian and Italian since I'm native. Let me know if there are other movies and scenes you want me to review, and thank you very much, as always, dear Patreons, for your support. Goodbye.